Hi everyone! Today we're going to talk about some of my worst experiences with therapists and a few tips how to spot a bad therapist and how to look for the one that suits you best. Alright, so I've had about 3 therapists that I've gone to for a while. The other ones I went either for too short a time or I just went once. I'm gonna mention them, but I'm gonna focus on the ones that I went for more time. So like the first long-term therapist that I went was right when I moved out of my hometown to another city that I was going to college in. I already moved depressed. I had been depressed about 2 to 3 years before choosing to go to therapy. So I wasn't being medicated at the time that I went to her, and I wasn't going to college at that particular time. I wasn't doing anything. She would have the worst style of therapy that I've seen in my life. Every week she was like, "Oh, how was your week?" And I was like, "I did nothing as usual. Can we talk about the issue now?" And one of my biggest problems with her was that I wasn't being medicated at the time that I went to her. And then she would like say, "Oh, I don't think you have depression," and I was like, "Oh, I have a lot of doctors that agree with you." And then she would like constantly have me talk about this useless stuff that happened on my day-to-day life, which was basically nothing because I was such a strong depressive episode that I could barely leave my bed or clean my room or anything like that. So I really didn't have much to do or to tell her. So every time I went there, she would ask that. I would say, "I have nothing to tell you." And then we would like talk about all these unimportant things. And when I tried to talk to her about my depression and how I was feeling, she would like imply to me like, "Oh, you should just try harder. You should just work harder." And I was like, "Can't you see that I'm trying as hard as I can?" And she would like, I sense that you're stuck in your life. And I'm like, "Of course I'm stuck. I can't get out of my bed." And it wasn't even like, at the time I would stressfully try to do shit. So like I would put them in my calendar and I would obsess over them for the whole day, even though I couldn't do the thing. So I'd like spend weeks and weeks obsessing about this one thing every day that I couldn't do, but I would still obsess because I thought that if I just focus on it hard enough, I'll be able to pull it. And I never could. And then she goes like, "Oh, but you're not trying hard enough." And I was like, "Do you know how hard I'm trying to do this?" So it's like, pretty soon, that went nowhere, obviously. And like, she never once suggested that I went to see a doctor or a psychiatrist. Never once, even though I could barely get out of bed. And I told her that every single session. She never once suggested that I went to a psychiatrist. And she would also say all sessions that I should be trying harder. Like, this isn't going to fix my depression. What kind of therapist are you? You're like, I'm talking to some lay person on the street. They would give me the exact same advice. Why am I paying you to say what someone who doesn't know anything about mental wellness would tell me on the street? Like, I might as well not come anymore. Which is what I did, by the way. And when I told her that it wasn't going anywhere and that I was feeling really frustrated, she was like, "Oh, you hurt my feelings saying that." And I was like, "Bish, oh my gosh. What kind of therapist are you? Pull your shit together." So that was that. So my first tip is actually, if your therapist doesn't believe you have depression and keeps treating you like you don't have anything, when you clearly know that you have, ditch them, because they just won't be able to treat you, and you can't waste your time trying to convince a professional of something they should already know and they should already be aware of. It's just insane. You shouldn't be wasting your time with that. So, sorry about the light change, it got dark. So like, that was my first therapist. After that, I went to a psychiatrist to look at medication, and I started taking it, and then only after a while I went back to look for another therapist. So like, my second therapist was also a woman, but this one was older, and she would make me, like, the first time that I went there, she wanted me to put on my payment information and everything, and she asked me like, do you work or something like that, and I said, no, I don't work. And she was like, how are you going to pay? The first time she looked at me, I was like, oh my god, she hates me because I'm like some poor fuck who got into her fancy office. So from there, I was already feeling like she doesn't like me at all. So like, we had our first sessions, which were good, but then after a while, what started to happen was that I would try to talk to her about anxiety issues, and mostly PTSD issues that I didn't know were PTSD at the time. I thought they were just weird anxiety. So I would try to talk to her about those things, and she would literally just ignore them, like pretend she heard nothing, or like give this half-ass advice and then move on. And I was like, why are you doing that? Why won't you fix on this thing that's impacting my life right now? Why? And to be honest, I think she just didn't work with anxiety disorders and such, but she never said that. She never said, oh, I don't work with that. She just brushed them off like they didn't matter. So I started to think, why don't you pay attention to what I'm saying? Why do you only pay attention to what you want from what I'm saying? And it was like, what happened was she started like digging up all this trauma stuff, all this really bad, deep stuff. And she then would like completely ignore that and never talk about it again. And she also never gave me any coping mechanism, or she just pulled them out and leave them there. And I was like, why are you doing that? You're causing all this stress and anxiety and distress, and you're not doing anything about it. You're just like unearthing all these things. Like she would give me all this random, generic, useless advice in the middle of what I was saying, but she would never give actual relevant advice like, oh, this thing that you're talking about is too heavy, or we should work more with this. Or I would talk about things, and I would sense that she would give more importance to some of them and not to other things. And I just felt like it was all really out there, like really random. It was like nobody was taking charge or directing anything to anywhere, and then I felt really lost. And not one moment she came to me and said, oh, you should be doing this. I expect you to do this. I expect you to direct the subjects that we were gonna talk about. Like, she never once told me how she operated, what was her approach to therapy. She never once told me. So I was just like randomly picking up subjects and talking about them and seeing if they raise reaction on her, because I had no idea what I was doing. And like, she wouldn't say anything, she wouldn't like give any direction, or say like, oh, you're supposed to choose what we're gonna focus on, or you should ask me if you want advice. What happened was, basically, I did and still do struggle with codependency. And the fact that she wouldn't tell me that I shouldn't be letting her control the session, which she wasn't doing, by the way. And neither was I, because I didn't know that I was supposed to do that either. It was like it just left it so to chance. That was really stressful. There was a time, it came a time where I really couldn't say anything anymore. I just came into the session, I was silent the whole time, because she made me so nervous with her silence and her staring, and like she was judging me or expecting me to do something, and I didn't know what it was. And like some other person has pointed out to me that I was probably projecting my mother on her. And I agree that I was probably doing that. But the fact that never once she acknowledged that, or told me to stop, or even made it clear that I was being too codependent, or that I was delegating too much to her. Like, how did she expect me to realize those things if she never told me? If she never like outright said none of that? And I was clearly not getting it, because we had like a lot of sessions, and I was still like doing that. Like, I think it was time she noticed that like being silent wasn't fixing it. I was still expecting her to like give me direction and advice and guide the session, and she never would, and she never told me why she wouldn't do that. And it was just making me so anxious. And when I talked to her about that, when I tried to say that she wasn't saying anything, or that she was ignoring things, or that she wasn't looking me in the face, because she did that a lot of times, she would like, no, I'm not doing that, you're noticing it wrong. And I was like, don't try to gaslight me in my therapist session, bitch, Jesus Christ. And I was like, all right. I mean, I brought the issue to her. She like denied that anything was happening, or she said, oh, I'm not here to like give advice about everything, or like. And I was like, but why do you say things on certain subjects and others you don't? Like, what made these other subjects special that you suddenly give up your no advice rule? And it was usually like this really long advice monologue that I was completely lost by the end of it. I got nothing from it, and I couldn't make the objections that I was thinking about while doing it. So the whole thing wasn't going anywhere by the end of it. And I was just like, yeah, I'm just gonna go, because honestly, I'm paying her, and like, she won't even tell me if I'm doing something bad or wrong. Like, isn't your job to like, I don't even know anymore. I don't even, like, it should make me fucking question what's the job of a therapist, honestly. Because like, she didn't act like an analyst that you just like sit down and you talk your heart away. She didn't act like that. She would, on certain subjects, she would like constantly make remarks and say things, and then on other things she would just ignore them and never talk about them again. And I was like, why do you interfere on some things, and then on this one you don't? You know, it was confusing, and I wasn't sure what her approach was, and she never said it. And I was like, I'm done with this. Honestly, it's like you don't even know what you're doing. I would be better off if I wasn't here. And I remember like the last day that I said like, oh, but isn't this helping? And I was like, yeah, it's helping, because I'm taking the things that I'm saying, and I'm analyzing them myself. But the fact that you make me so anxious, I didn't say that. I just said, yeah, it's helping. And she's like, oh, then if it's helping, why are you living? And I just didn't say anything. But what I was thinking was, yeah, it's helping because I'm taking this information. But the fact that coming here and saying anything is now making me anxious because of the way that you respond to what I do isn't helping me anymore. And you don't seem willing to work with me on that problem. So I'm going to go. She should have said to me at some point that she doesn't work with anxiety. And honestly, to this day, I still don't know if she doesn't work or if that's her normal approach to people who comes with anxiety problems to her. Like, she thinks she can analyze anything and then she just doesn't. So that's what happened. So after that, the tip is you should ask your therapist what their approach is with their session, because it may not be fit to you, and maybe they don't even know what their approach is, or if they are not sticking to it, you can notice on the session. Like, to me, it should be standard that a therapist tells you this basic information, like how much my session costs, how long does it take, what's my approach, what I work with, what I don't work with. It should be like standard that they tell you that, because not everyone is gonna think about asking those things, especially if it's like the first or second time that someone goes to therapy and they just don't say anything. And I was like, Jesus Christ, so many bad therapists. And then after that I left, and I said it was a good decision in my opinion, because it really wasn't going anywhere, and I wasn't about to leave my house, make all the travel into her office, just sit there anxiously without being able to say anything, and she just wouldn't address that ever. So honestly, it was really upsetting. And then, but at least I figured out that I should, from now then, make sure that the therapists at least know what they work with, and if they work with anxiety or not. Then after that, I spent a really, really long time without going to therapy, because I was just really disheartened by the way that she acted. Alright guys, that's it. Thank you for watching. Comment down below what you think and what your experiences were. Leave a like, a comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.